All right, we are recording. Good morning. As it says right here, I have not yet graded the test. 2 or 3 people turned it in after 10 o'clock at night, which is okay because you've got till midnight, but this old body cannot stay up much past 10 o'clock, so I have not had a chance to look at all of them yet. All right, there were a couple people yesterday who still had problems getting the stuff ready for Git and GitHub. I literally want to spend 5 to 10 minutes at first going over that. Then when we get done, I'm going to create a simple payroll program, and I'm going to create it as both a console app and as a GUI app using just the stuff we've learned so far in chapters 1 through 3. Then I'm going to lecture on chapter 4, and then we'll add a couple things to it so you can see the new stuff, so to speak. And tomorrow I'm going to go over chapter 5. If I've got the test done and graded, you will have your grades by then. All right. And then we will go over that as well. So let's see. Good morning, Aiden. I just started going over the email that I sent out to you this morning. So again, the first thing that I am going to do, and this unfortunately is going to involve me having to do a few different shares, but it's the only way I can think of doing it because again, I worked with a couple people last night in Teams and some of them had major problems getting this stuff. So again, I just want to show you, let's see, I'll bring up this one right here in just a second. All right, so if you are at your desktop, and I'm assuming right now, and maybe this is a wrong assumption, but I'm assuming that on your desktop, let me move mine over, So I'm assuming then at your desktop that you have the folder over there, and mine's going to be moved over in just a second, but the one that is called AWD 1100, etc., the big one, so to speak. All right, yeah, move that over. All right, so I'm assuming that you all have the folder that's called AWD 1100. Now, of course, I can't find mine, but it's probably in here someplace. So AWD, there it is, 1100 Fall 2022 with your name on it. All right. And most people probably save those to your desktop. Now, when you have that and you double click on it, you should have a folder in there that's called .git. If you have never done a git init before, you will have to do that. You do that, of course, by right mouse clicking on here and choosing git bash here. Now, you probably can't see my git bash window. That's okay. The point is this: when you do homework, your homework should be saved inside of your homework folder. When you do hands-on tests, they should be inside of your hands-on test folder. When you do labs, they should be in your labs folder. When you do pre-test, they should be in your pre-test folder. That's the way that it should be done. All right. And so let's assume that we've done all that stuff. And now we're ready to go and try to put that thing out and basically put it up to our GitHub repository. All right. So let me go in there and one more time, change my sharing here. And I'm going to change to my GitHub window. That's what hopefully you can see on your screen right now. The process isn't difficult. I've already got a git init file in here, but even if I type in git init again, it says reinitialize. So basically, I don't think it hurts anything to my knowledge. All right. But let's suppose, and I have not changed anything, but let's suppose that now I have just finished my test. All right. So I've just finished my test. So my test is in my hots folder. I want to go back again to my main folder, the fall 2022, your name, etc., all that stuff. Once I move back to that, I want to type in git add period. You must put a dot in there. That means add everything that has been changed since the last time I did a commit. Again, I'm just going to hit enter. It probably won't have anything. And if you get these warnings here, I may have mentioned this before, I may not have. It's not that big of a thing. But if you get those warnings, what it means is some software at the end, every time you hit enter, it puts in what's called a line feed. Other software puts in a carriage return line feed. All right. It's basically the same thing, but it's just how it's interpreted by the software. So between Git and something in here that Muroc has, I guess the written test, there's a difference. If you get that, they're warnings, they don't hurt anything. So again, the first thing you do is you put in git add dot. So that's the first thing you put in there. After you put in the git add dot, you put in git commit, all right, -m for a message, and then in double quotes, I will just put down, for example, if you want to do it on the day you did it or whatever, but I'm going to put in here chapters 1 through 3 written tests. Something, it should be a message in there that's meaningful so that if, when the time comes when I want to grade all this stuff, I'll know where to look for different things. So if I hit enter, it's telling me that it's pushing all that stuff out there, and there might be other stuff too. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't. So far, again, I've done a git add dot. Then I've done a git commit -m with a message. Now, I'm ready to push this thing out to GitHub. But before I do that, I'm going to type in git remote -v. What that does is this shows if I'm about to push it, where I'm going to push it to. If yours somehow comes back with nothing on it, that means that you've got to go back into your GitHub repository and copy the line in there that sets up your remote. And when you set up the repository, there's a line that'll say git remote, and it'll have something like this in it. All right, mine is set up, so I can now say git space push space -u space origin, and then whatever you have here, it sounds like more and more of you are getting the word master in there. It should be either master or main. If it's master, you type in master. If it's main right there, you type in main and you hit enter. If it spins around and tells you a few things, now don't worry, mine's rejected. I don't even know why. That's no problem. You shouldn't get this. I've just got so many different copies of this thing. That's why it's screwed up. But when you're trying to do this, if for some reason it doesn't work, it is your responsibility then to email me. And if we have to, I will set up either a Teams phone call with you or a Teams meeting, and we'll go through it together. All right. Now, after you've done that, and let's just assume this works. Again, I understand that it didn't work. I get it. All right, but let's assume you did yours, and indeed it did work. All right, then what you want to do is you want to go back out, and here I'm changing my share to the internet. All right, and you want to go back out to github.com, and you want to find your repository and bring it up. And when you do, something in there. So if I put in my HOTS, it should have a timestamp on it that says 2 minutes ago or whatever. All right, so that was quick, but I wanted to say that because I want that to make sense to all of you. All right, I want it to be able to work for all of you. All right. Okay, so just to try to show it one more time, what I'm going to do. So if you want to, if what I'm about to do right now, if you want to follow along, great. If you want to watch, that's totally fine, because I'm about to create a new repository. So everything that I do right now, you will have. If it's easier when you're watching me work and do a program, if rather than follow along, if it's easier for you just to watch, I'll try to make sure that I create a GitHub repository for each thing that I do. All right. And then I'll try to push it right away at the end of class so that you can see indeed what I've done. So let me come back here. All right. And I'm going to create a new repository. And I'm going to call this, I'm getting used to all lowercase, Muroc Payroll. All right. And I need an owner, and that's me. Now, when you get the green check mark there, it means again that that name is available. If I use something I already had, it would be red and I'd get an error message. I make my repositories public. Yours should be private, but I'm going to keep that public. Don't worry about the README. We'll work on these in other classes. So I put in there Muroc Payroll, all in lowercase. All right. And I'm just going to click Create Repository. All right. Now I'm going to copy a line from here in just a minute, but I'm first going to go over to my desktop. I realize you can't see it, but I'm going to come over and I'm going to create a new folder, and that new folder is going to be called Muroc Payroll, the exact same name I just created for my repository. All right. Okay. So let me jump back. Sorry. So I want to grab from here. I don't have to do any of this stuff really right now, except I want to grab this get remote line. Basically, in a nutshell, what that's going to say is, hey, anything I create on my desktop, when I push it to GitHub, that's where it should go. All right, so I'm going to copy that line. Just going to right mouse click on it and choose copy. All right, then I'm going to go and I got to change my share here. So I'm going to change my share so that it's showing, hopefully if I can find it, my desktop. All right, so let me go back to the desktop. I just created on the desktop, I just created on there a new folder that's called Muroc Payroll. All right, at least I thought I did. Maybe I created it somewhere else. Let me double check. So I'm going to create a new folder here, Muroc Payroll. All right, I guess I didn't have it. That's fine. So I double click and now I've opened the Muroc Payroll folder. All right. And I want to do just one thing. You won't be able to see it, but I'm going to right mouse click on the folder and choose Git Bash here. All right. Then I'm going to do a git init. And notice when I do that, this is right now it's empty, but as soon as I type in git init, I now get the .git folder there. And I also want to copy in that line I just copied that says git remote add origin. In my case, it's https://github.com/jpscottrankin/murocpayroll.git. All right, so I've done all that and I hit enter. Now to verify that it worked, I just type in git remote -v like victory, and it shows that same thing I just put in. All right, now I'm ready to go into Visual Basic. So Visual Studio. So I'm going to start up Visual Studio right now. And I'm going to, as soon as we bring it up, I'm going to again change. All right, I'm going to change my share so you can hopefully at least somewhat see what I'm doing. All right, so let me change my share here. And I'm in Visual Studio. Now I realize that as I change windows and stuff in Visual Studio, sometimes you can't even see what I'm doing. And I'm sorry about that. I don't know any other way to do it than the way I'm doing it. So I want to come in here and create a new project. So I'm going to click that. And it comes up with a new create a project dialog box. I want to make sure that it's a console app.NET framework. All right. And this one is going to be called Payroll Console 01 because it's the first payroll console that I'm creating. All right, so Payroll Console 1. The location, and I realize you probably can't see this now, is going to be at my desktop, Muroc Payroll. All right, so I've now set that. And I want the solution to just be called payroll. So if this works now, and if it starts up a brand new console project in just a second, I'm going to have a solution called payroll, and it'll have in there one single project called Payroll Console 001. So when I click create, let's see if that's what happens. Now I've been told sometimes, again, that when I do this, it doesn't show on the screen. So I'm going to make sure it does I'm going to come back in here and reset my share. All right, so you should be able to see on the screen right now, hopefully, a solution called payroll and one project called Payroll Console 01. All right, this is going to be almost remarkably simplistic because it's all the stuff that we went over in chapters 1, 2, and 3. All right, so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to create 4 variables. All right, and I'm going to create a string variable for my first name, another string variable for my last name, another string variable, a decimal variable that we'll call hours, another decimal variable we'll call rate, and one last decimal variable that we will call gross. Now, those names hopefully make sense to everybody, but just in case, hours is going to be hours worked, rate is going to be hourly rate, and gross is going to be gross pay. In other words, it's going to be hours times rate. That's it. So what do I want to do here? I want to read in these 4 values. I want to calculate this value, and then I want to print out everything. So that's what I want to do here. So I'm going to input the first name, the last name, the hours, and the rate. I'm going to do that right now. So I'm going to say here, right, so it stays on the same line, input first name. All right, so that's going to do that. It'll bring right up on the screen, input first name. And then I'm going to say first name equals console.readline. All right, I need a console in front of this. That's why I'm getting the error. All right, now I haven't done much, but I am going to put a read line in here. Console.readline, sorry. All right, and I'm going to run the program. All that should come up on the screen is input first name, and then it'll allow me to do that. When I hit enter, nothing else will happen. But when I run this, and I know you can't always see my run, it's okay. That's what it says, input first name. If I type in Jeff and hit enter again, the program stops. So that let me input the first name. Then I want to input the last name. I'm not going to run it again because it'll look just like what I just did. It'll ask me to input the first name, then it'll ask me to input the last name. All right, so now I'm going to come in here. Now we're going to say input hours worked. All right, now remember, I can't just say hours equal console.readline. That won't work because console.readline reads in text, and I'm attempting to put it into a decimal. So I have to say convert dot to decimal and put that whole thing inside of parentheses. So that should be okay. Now I'm going to say input hourly rate. And I'm going to do the same thing. Whoops. Rate equal constant. So right there, when you've got to write a console program, that has simple types of inputs, that's how you do it. All right, so what's left to do? Well, what's left to do is to calculate gross pay. And that is just gross equals hours times rate. That's it. So I've got my inputs right here. And again, maybe I'm kind of beating this to death a little bit, but I can come in here. You saw me do this before. So I've got my inputs, my processing, and my outputs. All right. And my inputs, you've already seen them. There are 4 of them. First name, last name, hours, and rate. So my processing is to input the first name, input the last name, input the hours, and input the rate. Then I want to come in here and calculate the gross. And when I'm done, I want to display or output whatever you want to say. So output the first name, output the last name, output the hours, output the rate, and output the gross. Finally, over here for my actual outputs, they are like I just said, they are first name, last name, hours, rate, and gross. Now, we have reached the point in this class where all of that really and truly should make sense to everybody watching this, whether you're watching it live or whether you're watching it on tape. That should just make sense that it's a simple payroll program. So we're inputting a person's first name and last name. We need to know how many hours they worked, what their hourly rate is. All right. And from that, we're calculating the gross. Okay. So these were our inputs. That's what we're calculating. And then we've got our outputs. So I'm just going to say output everything. So I'm going to say here, now I'm going to put this on a new screen. So I can say console.clear and it'll clear the screen for me. It'll look a little nicer, that's all. So I'm going to have a console.writeLine and I'll say first name and I will put in here my variable first name. I don't have to do any conversion right there. I don't have to do a .toString. It already is a string. Okay, so I can copy this down again and say last name. All right, and I can put in here the last name. So that'll print those 2 things. All right, then I'll put another one in here. Now I'm going to put hours worked. Like that. And that's going to be hours. Now, even though that'll probably print okay the way it is, it's still a good idea there to do a .toString. And I'll tell you what, I'll do it since it's hours, I'll do it to 2 decimal places. So I'll put an N2 right there. And I need an ending parenthesis. So now I've got my first name, my last name, and my hours. So I'm going to come in here again. And this time I'm going to put in the hourly rate. All right. And that'll be rate, again, .toString, but now I'll put it to currency. Why? Because how much you make is in currency. Finally, I'll do the gross pay. Right? And again, I will say gross dot toString, and I will put that to currency. Now, I can shrink this down, but the point is that's pretty much right there. That's the whole program. I realize that's smaller. I'll make it bigger in a second, but you have to look at that. And if for some reason what I did in there does not make sense to you, you will have to get a hold of me and let me know so we can work through this. All right? But by now, those steps should make sense to each and every one of you. All right, I'm going to make this bigger. Now I'm going to run it. Okay, so we should always do first a file save all, and I'm going to run it. Now, when I run it, you may or may not be able to see this. So I'm going to check here, and I'm going to go to my share and reshare, try to find, there's my output. So now you should be able to see the output here. There it is. So I'm just going to put me in there. And I'll say I work 40 hours and I make $10 an hour. Now, when I hit enter, the screen's going to clear and I should get all of my information unless I screw it up. All right. So there it is. And I could run the program, okay, and stop it and run it again, stop it and run it again. Tomorrow, not today, but tomorrow we're going to go over chapter 5. And when we do, we'll learn about looping and how we can put this program in a loop so we can run it over and over and over again as we're testing it. All right. Does anyone watching this, does anybody here have any questions on what I just did? All right, then that's the first one. Okay, now I'm going to grab and make a GUI copy of that program, for lack of better words. So I'm going to single left mouse click on my solution, right mouse click on my solution, choose add, new project. I want this to be a Windows Forms app .NET framework, and I want this one will be called Payroll GUI 01. It's already in the right location, and I click create. And now I have two of them. I've got my payroll console and my payroll GUI. I do want to make sure when I run this, the GUI is the one that runs. So I'm going to right mouse click on here, choose set as startup project. All right. All right. And I'm going to build this. I'm going to build it fairly quickly because I want to get this done and explain by the time we have our first break. So we can come back and I can go over right away. I can just go over chapter 4. All right. So as I always do, I'm going to come in here and immediately change the name of my form. So I'm going to right mouse click on it and do a rename and change it to FRM Payroll Chapters 1-3. And I hit enter, and usually it asks me if I want to change everything, but it didn't. I don't know why, but it didn't. That's fine. All right. Just because, again, I think it shows a little nicer, I'm going to change the background color of my form, and I'll make it a yellow. All right, so I've got that. Now, as always, I'm going to have my 3 buttons. So I'm going to put in a button, make it a little bigger. That'll be my calculate button. I will have a clear button, and I will have an exit button. So pretty much that is going to end up right there. That is going to be my interface. All right. As far as my buttons go, but I want to put in 4 text boxes, 5 text boxes and 5 labels. So let me just put in 1 label first. By now, you know this is how I do things, be that right or wrong. I'm going to set the auto size to false so I can make this bigger. All right. Now I'm going to go in and I'm going to add a text box. And we'll put that over here. All right. There's my label. There's my text box. All right. And I'm immediately going to go in and make 4 more of these. So I drew that invisible lasso around there. do a Control C to copy, a Control V to paste. So there's 1, there's 2, there's 3, and there's 4. So that's my interface, but it's not very big. So I'm going to highlight everything. I'll click on a button and I'll do a Control A to highlight everything. Then I'm going to go over to my font here. And as I've been doing, I'm going to change the font. I'll change the size to 20. I'll make it bold and I'll make it Arial. Now I've got that. All right. And actually, probably my interface is set right now, except what I might want to do is I might want to make these text boxes just a little bit bigger so they look a little nicer. All right. Okay, now I'm going to go and do a Control A to highlight them all. I'm going to right mouse click and I'm going to choose Lock Controls. Now my interface is in place. All right. So I'm going to rename everything. And like I said, I'm doing this kind of as quickly as I can. So my label here, this will be LBL first name, and the text there will be first name. All right. And I'll put a colon after it. All right. My next one will be LBL last name. And the text will be last name with a colon after it. The next one will be hours. I'm just trying to keep this simple. So LBL hours. And the text on there will be hours. The next one will be rate. And I will call it LBL rate. And the last one will be gross. LBL gross for the name and gross with a colon on it for the text. Oops, I forgot the colon. All right. Now, the only thing I like to do, and I've said this to you before, you don't have to, but I'm going to highlight all of these. I'm going to go down here to where it says text align. I'm going to click the down arrow and it shows you pictures. I'm going to pick the middle right one. And that made everything right justified. I like the way that looks better. You may agree, you may disagree. Either way is fine. So this will now become TXT first name. This will be TXT last name. This will be TXT hours. This will be TXT rate. And this last one will be TXT gross. So those are all done. All right. Finally, my buttons. Click on the first button. Change the name. Whoops. Change the name of the first button to BTN calculate. Change the text on that button to calculate. Second button, the text will be clear. And the name, whoops, try that again. The text will be clear. And the name will be BTN clear. And then the last button, the name will be BTN exit. And the text on there will be exit. Now, again, I can quickly check to make sure I've renamed everything by going over here. I'm going to drag this up. And I'm going to click where it says properties in this white box. And it looks like I've renamed everything. So that's good. All right. Couple more things. These are things we always should be doing. Click on the form. I'm going to go to my accept button, click on it, click the down arrow and choose BTN calculate. I'm going to go to my cancel button, click on it, click the down arrow and choose BTN clear. I'm going to go down to start position, which is currently Windows default location. Click on it, click the down button and choose center screen. All right. Now, this field, the gross field, will be read-only, so I'm going to click on it. I'm going to go up to my read-only and it says false. I'm going to double click on false and now it's true. It is read-only. So I want right now my tab order to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I'm going to set that right now. I'm going to click in the first name text box and I'm going to do a view tab order. And again, 0, 1, 2, 3, that's read only. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Looks like it's good to me. So I do another view tab order to turn that off. All right. I always like to, when I get to this point, there's no code in here yet, but I like to just run it once, make sure it's in the middle, and make sure as I start to tab, it looks like everything works, and it does. All right. So I've got to put in my calculate code. I've got to put in my clear code. And I've got to put in my exit code. All right. I've done this for you on multiple occasions. So give me a second here. I'm going back here and I'm going to say, I'm going to grab where I've got the exit button code. I'm just going to grab that code. And you've seen me do this on numerous occasions. So there that is. And I'm going to paste that in. That should be working now, but I'll test it in just a moment. All right. What do I want to do when I click clear? I want to clear, 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 set the focus. All right. The order in which you clear these doesn't matter, but txt first name text equals double quote, txt last name dot text equals double quote, txt hours dot text equals double quote, txt rate. Oh, it was rate. Let's double check. Looks like that's right. So txt rate dot text equals double quote, txt gross dot text equals double quote, and txt, whoops, txt first name dot focus. Again, we are reaching the point, and I know this is day 7, but at least conceptually, what I'm doing in here should make sense to you. All of the code that's in here. So again, this is clearing out the 5 text boxes. This is setting the cursor to the first text box. This is creating a message box with a text in it. Do you really want to exit? With a title of exit now. It's got a yes button and a no button on it, and the icon is a question mark. And if I choose the yes from the yes, no, the program will exit. So I should be able to test all that stuff now. So I'm going to do a file, save all, and I'm going to run the program. So again, I'm just going to put garbage in all of these. I can't put anything in there, but I should be able to clear. I did, and there's my cursor flashing in there. That's good. I should also be able to test and make sure, because remember, I set that also so that if I hit escape, it clears. All right. Now, the calculate button doesn't have anything in it yet, so I can't yet test that, but I can check exit, no, exit, yes. So all that works. Now, writing the code for this is actually really simple. It really and truly is, because what I want to say here is decimal hours equal convert dot to decimal txt hours dot text. Decimal, oops, decimal, I could spell right, rate equals convert with a txt rate dot text, decimal gross equals hours times rate. All right. And finally, txt gross.text equals gross dot toString, and I will format that for currency. That's it. Now we will check it, we'll run it, see if I forgot anything. Again, the program will blow up if I put something non-numeric in either one of these or I leave it blank. We're going to fix that in an upcoming chapter. So I'm going to come in here and do another file, save all, and I'm going to run it. So again, if I come through here and put in Jeff, Scott, 40, and 10, and click calculate, 400. That's good. I'm going to hit the escape key to clear. That worked. So Jane Doe, let's say she worked 50 hours and makes 20 bucks an hour. Now, instead of clicking calculate, I'm going to hit the enter button and see if I get 1,000. And I do. So right now, it appears as though everything in this program is working. All right. So again, my last question then to all of you is, does anybody have any questions on what I just did? Again, if you're watching this on tape and something doesn't make sense, it is your responsibility to email me and let me know so we can work our way through it. All right. Now I'm going to change my share. And I want to change it so that it shows my Git window. I don't want that one. I think it's this one. Yeah, Muroc Payroll. So let me clear the screen, and hopefully you can see this Git window on my screen. I'm going to make it a little bigger. So what do I want to do? This is the same stuff I showed you before. I want to start by saying, do I need to do a git add? No, I've already done it. So I say git. I'm sorry, I don't need to do a git init because I've already done it. So I do a git add and put a period in there. That should add everything that I've just added to this Muroc payroll folder. So I'm going to hit enter. And sometimes it'll show things, sometimes it's empty. That's okay. If you say, well, how do I know if I've got anything in there or not? You can, if you want to, type in git status. And that shows in there everything that's ready to be committed. It has not yet been committed. Do you have to do that? No. All right, but I'm going to clear. And now I'm going to type in git commit -m. And for the message, I'll put payroll console and GUI chapters 1 through 3. Not the best message, but it works. Hit enter. Gave me a bunch of junk. I'm not sure exactly what it all did, but I'm going to clear again. And now I'm going to say git push -u origin. And again, if yours says main here, right there, you got to type in main. If it says master, you've got to type in master. I'm going to hit enter. It sits and spins a little bit. There's not much in there, so it didn't take long. How do I know if this worked? All right, let me change my share one last time here. And change my share so that I'm going back onto the internet. All right, then going back to the internet, if I go out to github.com and hit enter, all right, it should, I may have to search for the repo. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to type in Muroc, and notice there's Muroc payroll. There it is. If I click on it, all right, 1 minute ago. Okay, and if I open this, It's showing me everything that's in here. There's payroll console. All right. There's payroll GUI. I can actually even go in here, and if I want to, I could bring up the actual associated code and look at that in here. I don't want to. All right. But that's what you have to do. All right. Okay. So with that said, all right, I'm going to go and I'm going to change. So right now it should be showing GitHub, but I want to go over to here. Yes, I'm still here. All right. And very quickly, we have now gone through chapter 1, how to get started with Visual Studio, chapter 2, how to design a Windows Forms application, and chapter 3, how to code and test a Windows Forms app. As it says, that was our introduction. Now we're learning about the particulars of the language itself. So this is the plan. Just so you know, today I'm going to lecture on chapter 4, how to work with numeric and string data. Tomorrow, Wednesday, I will lecture on chapter 5, how to code control structures. On Thursday, I will give you another of the infamous pretests. It'll be a pretest for chapters 4 and 5. There should be time left afterwards. We'll do a problem or two from the homework and or from the labs for chapters 4 and 5. All right. Friday will be lab for the entire period. There is no class next Monday. It is Labor Day. So next Tuesday, 1 week from today, all right, which I think is like the 6th, that'll be your next hands-on test for chapters 4 and 5. All right. Then we will do the same kind of thing with 6 and 7 and take a test. 8 will have 8 is more complex. After we go through that chapter, there'll be a test just on 8, and we're going to combine 9, 10, and 11 into one test. So you will have a test on 4 and 5, a test on 6 and 7, a test on chapter 8, and a test on chapters 10 and 11. That's going to get us probably at least through September, I would guess, if not further, but we'll see. All right. So I'm going to give you your break in just a couple minutes, but we are going to talk here about chapter 4, how to work with numeric and string data. A couple people had asked me, and it said things like, I don't know how to get started. I don't understand variables, etc. Some of that is going to be explained in this chapter. As you notice, we start with talking about built-in variable types. Some of this stuff you've seen, much of it you haven't seen. Then we'll go over to strings and do the same thing. Then we will go over to converting between decimal types and a few other things. 2 more things and then you're getting your break. The first thing, and I know I showed this before, but I'm going to say it again. If you go out to w3schools.com and hit enter, they've got a thing in there for tutorials. If you go down to programming, they've got a whole C# tutorial in there. And with everything they go through, so for instance, if I went through here and wanted to do user input, okay, so if I would click on that, there's always a run example and you can try things if you want to do that. All right. Okay, the other thing is, and I know I may or may not have said this before, but just in case I'm saying it again, if I go out to docs.microsoft.com, docs short for documentation, docs.microsoft.com, and I hit enter. Okay. Now we're about to talk about, one of the things we're going to talk about is C# strings. So if I come in here and in this search box, I type in C# string methods, for example. There it is, the basic of strings. So you can start looking through there. So you've got plenty of documentation. There's a whole presentation on it here. All right. And you might have to go and search around for it, but there's a whole bunch of stuff out there. It is 8:55. We're taking a break. I'm going to pick it up at 9:05, and I'm going to start right here on chapter 4. All right. if there aren't any questions, I didn't bring any water with me, so I'm going to go get my water and I'll be back in 10 minutes. All right, it's 9:05, so I will continue on just to show you one last thing real quick. You'll notice I Googled here C# string methods, and typically what comes up first or right near the beginning again is from docs.microsoft.com. There's a couple other sites that give you really good information. There's completectutorial.com, the W3 schools I've already mentioned, and the other one I use quite a bit is csharpcorner.com. All right, just a couple things for you to keep in mind if you're working on something and get stuck or whatever. All right, so let's start on chapter 4. How to work with numeric and string data. The first thing that's shown here on page 93 are all of your built-in data types. Now, when they say built-in data types, yeah, they're right. But I want to mention something to you, and it may or may not make a lot of sense now. And I've been told by some people that the description I'm about to give you is good, by others that it's not good. All right. But these are what are referred to as simple data types or elementary data types. So here's the example, good, bad, or indifferent. Imagine it was the first day of class, and it was not an online class, it was a seated class. And so 30 of you come into class, you sit down, you get your seats, etc. And I'm not there yet. There's nobody there. So class is just about to start. Somebody walks in, but it's not me. It's not the teacher. It's a teaching assistant. And it's a young lady, and she walks up and gives each one of you a Lego piece, just a simple Lego, and says, your teacher will be 10 minutes late. Here's something for you to play with. Well, I mean, let's face it, with that Lego piece, there's not a whole heck of a lot you can do with it. But perhaps after a few minutes, you get together with the other people in the classroom and you combine your pieces and you make something. The reason I'm telling you that is that what you see on your screen right now are simple Lego pieces. When we get to chapter 8 and beyond, we'll start putting them together and we'll start combining simple data types into more complex data types, just so you're aware of that. All right. The first thing is everything that you see that I'm about to highlight, or I guess I can't highlight it very well, but everything from byte through decimal, all of these, those are numbers. They're all numbers. Byte, S byte, short, U short, int, U int, long, U long, float, double, and decimal. Those are all numbers. All right. The last two that are in there are non-numeric. Okay. But when you look, you'll notice that sometimes there'll be an S in front of something or there'll be a U in front of something. If there's an S in front of it, it means it's signed. So signed means it can have negative values. If there's a U in front of it, it's unsigned, which means it cannot have negative numbers. So you'll notice if I create an int, it has a range of -2 billion plus to +2 billion plus. But if I create a uint or an unsigned int, now it goes from 0 to 2 times this, so 0 to 4.3 billion. Is that going to matter with what we do? The answer is no. I will tell you that out of this list, what you will use probably at least 90% of the time in these numbers is going to be one of three things. An int, if you want any kind of whole number, a double, if you want to be able to use something with a lot of digits in it, and a decimal when you're working with money or you're working with something where decimal makes sense. Normally, decimal and double can be used interchangeably. So you could make a variable a double or you could make it a decimal. Notice the difference. With a double, it has 14 significant digits. What does that mean? That typically means after the decimal place. So 9 14 times, 9999 14 times. Whereas with a decimal, it's 28. Does that matter? No. Some people I know use ints for all whole numbers, doubles for anything that has a decimal place in it. It's just a matter of choice typically. And the last two that are in there, char is a single character. We'll look at that in a bit. And bool is a Boolean. It's something that's a true-false variable. Now, quite often, when you create a Boolean variable, you start the name of the variable with the word is or the word has, like is married, is union member, etc. Because those are the kinds of things that can be true or false. All right, that's my take on this. You can read what they say. I don't like to read out of the book here. I just don't. All right. But you should be, by now, you should be at least paging through this book, and you should be trying to glean what you can glean from it. All right. When you do this, what you're doing is you are doing a variable declaration and a variable initialization, but you're doing it over 2 lines. So what the author there calls a declaration statement, I'd agree. You're declaring a new variable called counter. What he calls an assignment statement, I call it an initialization. You are setting counter to an initial value of 1. Most of the time, if you know the value ahead of time, if you do, you will, when you declare it, you'll initialize it at the same time. Do you have to do that? No. But again, it can result in less code. And most people will tell you that if they're going to be writing code, and if it's up to them, they will typically like to try and write as little code as possible if they're going to be the ones maintaining it. So here's a bunch of examples where they're both declaring variables and initializing them. So Muroc defines a variable as something that stores a value that can change as the program executes. Technically, it's a place in memory, in the computer's memory, that holds a value that can change while the program's running. Doesn't mean it will change, but it can change. All right. Their naming conventions, I want you to follow these. Some of you, when you did your test, you named your variables starting with a capital letter. Don't do that. You don't want to stand out in a bad way from the way most people write code. All right. So if you've got something like interest rate, notice this is called camel casing, because if you've got a new word, you run it together and the first letter of the new word starts capitalized. All right. So if this was interest rate hello, the R in rate and the H in hello would both be capitalized. I want you to name your variables like that and use that camel case. Again, use meaningful names. It makes it, your program becomes much easier for people to read. It becomes much easier for people to understand. All right, okay. Let's see. How to declare and initialize a constant? It's the word const, followed by the type, followed by the name, equals a value. Here you cannot declare it on one line and initialize it on another. You have to both declare it and initialize it together. Now, I'm more old school, and this Muroc book is more new school. What I mean is, my constants in C#, like they show their days in November and sales tax, I always make those constants all uppercase. Why? Because that's the way I was taught to do it. Do you have to do that? You should at least have some kind of a standard that you adhere to. I prefer if you made all your constants uppercase. So that, again, that days in November would be all capitalized. That sales tax would be all capitalized. Once you set the value of a constant, you cannot change it when the program's running. So it cannot appear on the left-hand side of an equal sign like it is here after you've set it. So again, it stores a value that can't be changed. All right. Again, try to use meaningful names that are easy to remember. All right, arithmetic expressions. Now, some of these you probably all know. The first 4, at least, that probably everybody knows. plus for addition, minus for subtraction rather. Multiplication is the asterisk. Division is a forward slash, the one right next to your shift key on the right. Do not use a backslash, which is the key above your enter key. It means something else. Now, the one that's next is modulus. It's the remainder operator. Let me very quickly here, because I don't want to waste my time. I certainly don't want to waste yours. But I'm going to just for a second here, I'm going to change my share. So if I do something like this, all right, if I say, let's see, x equals 6 divided by 2. Well, as you probably guessed, that's going to give me 3. Okay. If I say, in fact, I'd make it an int. So if I say int x equal 2, 6 divided by 2, it'll give me that. I may or may not have said this to you before, but if I say int y equals 7 divided by 2, I also get 3. I do not get 3.5. All right, if I want 3.5, I have to do two things. I have to first make it a double or a decimal. So I'll make it a double, and I'll say equals. Now, if I do this, 7 divided by 2, guess what? It still gives me 3, but it's now 3.0. If I want to force this to be 3.5, there's about 5 ways I can do it. I'm very quickly going to show you all of them. I can put here 7.0, and that'll do it. Or I can put in 2.0, and that'll do it. Or I can do both, and that'll work. Or I can come in here and I can do what's called cast. In other words, I can come in there and say, hey, treat that like it's a float. Now, that doesn't change the value of 7, because 7 appears on the right-hand side of an equal sign and not the left-hand side. But that will give me 3.5. So I can do that. I can even put a space there if I want to. Or I can do this, or I can do both of them. So if I want to force that to be 3.5, I've just shown you 6 ways that you can do that. All right. The modulo is the remainder operator. So if I say int z equals, let's say 17 modulo 3. Well, back in the day, I don't know about you, but I learned that this would be 5R2, because it's 5 with a remainder of 2. What you get when you do the modulo is just that remainder portion. So that's going to give you 2. Now, when do you use this? 2 times when you use it a lot. If you're converting like dollars and cents or doing something with change, or if you're working with time, 60 minutes, 60 seconds, etc. There are other uses for it as well, but those are how you're going to use it probably the most often. All right. You may or may not be aware of this, but if I come through here and say int a equals 6, totally legit, but I can also do this. I can put a plus sign there. I don't know what the benefit is of doing that. I really have absolutely no idea, but you can do it. If I want to make it negative, I do it like that. All right. So that covers everything on that page except 2 things. And that is plus plus, and that is minus minus. Plus plus adds 1, minus minus subtracts 1. So here I've got, let's just say that I've got some code in here. And at the top of my program, I type int age equals 18. And now there's some code in here. I'm going to put in dot. There's some code in here. I don't know what it was, but there's some code in there. And this person just had a birthday. So I can either say plus plus age, or I can say age plus plus. Both of those will add 1 to age. So if it was 18, it'll now be 19. All right, if I were to say either minus minus age or age minus minus, now age would go down to 17. So the natural question is, okay, I get that, but what's the difference between saying age plus plus and saying plus plus age? When you use it like this, there is absolutely no difference. All right, I'm going to show you the difference in a minute, but this is just like I said, age equal age plus 1. That's what both of these lines do. And if I said here minus minus, or if here I said minus minus, that's the same thing as saying age equal, not an A, it should be age minus 1. All right, so when is it different? I'm not going to use age, I'm just going to use A, and I'm going to set it equal to 7, and I'm going to create B. And I'm just going to set that equal to 0, because I want to show you the difference between putting plus plus at the beginning and putting plus plus at the end. So I'm going to say B equals A plus plus, and I'm going to say B equals plus plus A. This one is called the post. This one is called the post incrementer, because what it does is it takes whatever value is in A, which is 7, and it assigns it to B. Then it adds 1 to A. So when we get done with this, now B equals 7, A equals 8. But if we do it this way, this is the pre-incrementer. So B equals 8 and A equals 8. So the difference between them is if you put the plus plus on the end, it does the initialization first, then it adds 1. And when you do the plus plus before the letter, it does it first, then it assigns it. And as you'd probably guess, the minus minus works the same way. So let me hit enter a few times, move that up. So if I say minus minus here or minus minus there, now it assigns A to B. So now B is 7, but A, we just removed 1 from it, so it's 6. Here we subtract 1, so they're both 6. All right. Now I've had people gone through this before with people and they go, okay, I sort of get it. That said, I don't like this. Then don't use it. You can always rewrite this as 2 lines of code. You can say minus minus A, and then B equals A, because that's what that does. If you're doing something like this, you're in your first semester and we're only 7 days in. You should be programming right now for understandability on your part. When you transition over a year from now, or whenever that is, when you're in your second year program, courses, then you'd probably want to do it the other way, because you've had some practice doing it. So you'd want to be doing it more like this than like this. All right, one more thing I want to mention here to you. Right? Let's assume here that I've got something like this, and I say B equals 10. You cannot do some, because I've seen people try this, B plus plus 10. It doesn't work. Plus plus will only work adding 1 to a variable, or subtracting 1 with a minus minus. In the next chapter, in chapter 5 that we'll go over tomorrow, you'll see where you end up using plus plus and minus minus a lot. All right. Now, the other thing I want to say is, let's assume here that I want to add 10 well, let's say 5. I want to add 5 to B. Okay, and I'm going to show you a couple different ways of doing it. I can say B equals B plus 5. Totally legit, nothing wrong with that. But there is a shortcut that's in here, and I'm bringing it up now because you're going to see it in your book in a second. I can say B plus equal 5. Those two lines that you see right there mean exactly the same thing. The first one results in a couple less keystrokes. And technically, this is supposed to execute faster than this. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's at least what I've been told. And just so you see it, there is a plus plus, all right, or a plus equals, there is a minus equals, there is a times equals, there is a divide equals, and there is a modulus equals. So all of those have shortcuts. Again, if they confuse you, just keep doing it this way. Don't do it this way. It's okay. All right, but they're just a couple of shortcuts that you can choose to use if or as desired. That's all. So let me grab this, go back again to the book. All right, so that's everything that I can think of that's on here. And their examples, are they better? I don't know. They're probably very similar. It says the first 5 operators are called binary. These, because you need something on the left-hand side and the right-hand side for addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and modulus. The positive and negative that are here, they're called unary operators because you only need one thing. And the plus plus typically and the minus minus are unary as well. All right. Assignment statements. It's what I just showed you. The plus equals, the minus equals, the times equals, the divide equals, and the modulo equals. All right. So you can read that at your leisure. And then we talk order of precedence. You probably know this from, I don't know, maybe junior high, that you do addition and subtraction after you do multiplication, division, and now modulus. So this is the order of operations. The increment and decrement, meaning the minus minus and the plus plus, are done first. Then a positive sign or a negative sign is done next. Then multiplication, division, and modulus. And if you've got a bunch of them, if you got a line with multiple multiplications and or divisions and or moduluses, you go from left to right. And addition and subtraction. You can always override that by using parentheses to make things go in the order that you want them to go. And you can nest parentheses. So have parentheses within parentheses within parentheses, all that you need to. Okay. Casting, I've actually shown you that already. There's an example right there. I showed you it before by using, I think it was the double or the decimal. All right. But you can cast any kind of a variable. What you cast, you are casting on the left-hand side of an equal sign. So there's some examples there. That means you're never changing the original value that appears. Maybe I misspoke, so let me say it again. When you cast, you're always casting on the right-hand side of an equal sign. Since it's on the right-hand side and not the left-hand side, you are never changing the value you are casting. You are making a copy of it and using that copy. All right. Now, sometimes you don't have to do that. For instance, if I come in here and I got a double and 2 integers like this, and I add them all up and put them into a double, it'll automatically cast these for me. That's called implicit casting. All right. If you do it yourself, like this and like this, that's called explicit casting. So if something is done explicitly, the programmer does it. If something is done implicitly, the software does it. All right. The math class, there's a bunch of built-in stuff. So if we look at a couple of these examples that are here halfway down, math.round will round to the nearest whole number. So in other words, if it's 5.6, it'll make it 6. If it's 5.4, it'll make it 5. You can round to a certain number of decimal places. You can use the math.pow. Right there, when you say math.pow and then in parentheses, radius comma 2, that's radius squared. So if I wanted it cubed, I would say radius comma 3, etc. You'll notice for the area of a circle, there's math.pi. Pi is a built-in C# constant. It's 3.14159. I don't know how many decimal places. That's how many I know. It's just 5 places. All right. There's a max and a min function. That will allow you to go through and pass in some stuff and find the largest or find the smallest. What you should notice is each one of these methods, round, pow, sqrt, max, and min, they all start with the word math. They're all part of the math class. So it's the name of the class, math, dot, the name of the method. All right. And it says when you use these, they have to be static. That'll make more sense when you actually see examples of them in the program. All right. But they've got a little bit more. If you don't like the verbiage I just gave you, you can take a look at what's in here. Random numbers. All right. Why are random numbers important? Well, they're important for a lot of reasons. A lot of games have random numbers. So if you click, you might move to a random spot on the screen or whatever. But there's different ways that you can create random numbers. Now, one thing most people don't get, I'm going to switch my share back for just a second. I'm going to go back to that page I was just on where I was in Notepad. If I can find it. It's not the one I want. It again. Still not the one I want. No, why isn't it giving me the one I want? Actually, I can use that one. I was trying to figure out who had and who had not yet set up their GitHub repository, but I believe at least now everyone has. So let's grab that one. Good. That's the one I wanted. All right. So when I come in here, what you may realize or may not realize is anytime you create a random number in any programming language, it doesn't probably do what you think it does. It gives you a random number. That random number is greater than or equal to 0, and it's less than 1. So if you get a number like 0.7856 or 54326, and you want to make that into a whole number, you're going to have to convert it to an integer and make it either 78 or 79, for example. But what I want to get across to you is, by default, when you run random, you get a value like this. You don't get a whole number. All right. That's the truly using random. So that said, let me jump back into the book then. And you'll notice there's different ways we can do this. We can put in here, as an example, just the word next. or you can put in the word next and put a maximum value, or you can put a range, or you can do it to get a double. The key takeaway from this chart is the examples they show here. So if I wanted to write a program that's going to generate a random grade for a student, okay, and let's say that I wanted that grade to be between, I don't know, 30 and 100. I would do a number dot next 30, 101. And that would give me a number greater than or equal to 30 and less than 101. So all of the numbers inclusive between 30 and 100. All right. Here they're simulating rolling a dice. So notice it's 1 and 7. So that's a number greater than or equal to 1 and less than 7. So in other words, numbers between 1 and 6. When you use this, you have to do what's typically referred to as seed the rand. That's that right there that says random number equal new random. Most people don't get that. But if you look at the third bullet down, it says when you create an instance of the random class, you can provide a start value called a seed value. All right. And you'll see this more when we start to write some programs that maybe utilize this stuff. All right, that's everything on numbers. So I'm going to go into strings now. Let me ask though, any of you watching this live have any questions on anything we just went over with numbers? Anything? All right, then I will jump into strings. Now, I just showed you before the break, I went in and typed in C# string methods. And if I go here, again, there's the string class out on docs.microsoft.com. And if I go down here long enough, there will be a thing. Yeah, it's way the hay down here. Yeah. But sooner or later, it will show me some of the different methods that are available for strings. You can see how long this thing is. All right, but there we go. There's methods. So these are the different things that you can do with strings. I don't know how many this adds up to. If you told me it was 100, I'd believe you. If you said it was more than 100, I'd believe you. All right. But these are all things that you can do with strings. Strings in C# must, repeat, must be enclosed between double quotes. Must be. You cannot use single quotes. Single quotes are for chars or characters. Now, when you work with JavaScript, you can use either single quotes or double quotes, not in this language. All right. When you use the plus sign, like they're showing in this example here, where they say string name equal first name plus a blank space plus last name, that's known not as addition, that's known as string concatenation, because that's what you're doing. All right, I think I've hit most of the stuff that's in here. If I say this, these examples that are up here, here I am initializing message 1 to data entry. Here I'm initializing it to the empty string, meaning it has basically no value. Null is a quick way to basically take almost any kind of variable, and null means the absence of a value. There is no value. How do you include special characters in strings? Well, you may have seen me do these before. The \n, and notice all these are backslashes. That's the one above your enter key. All right. \n means new line. The backslash is called an escape character or an escape sequence. And what it does is, since there's a \n, it says whatever comes after the backslash has got a special meaning. N means new line, like you hit the enter key. T is for tab. R is for return. And you might say, what's the difference between N and R? You'll find that out in a later lecture. Backslash, backslash is a backslash, and backslash quote is a quote. Again, the easiest way is to just look at the examples in here. All right. How to convert data types. Okay. And guess what? Some of this stuff that they're going to get to in here, we've already looked at. We've already done like the convert dot two decimal, convert dot 2int32, etc. We're going to look at some of those conversions. All right. So there are built-in classes in C that have these names in capital letters. These are the words we use when we define those types of classes. If you go, I don't get that, that's chapter 12. You probably shouldn't get it yet. All right. So don't worry about it. Here are some common methods for data conversion. All right. We've looked at, if you look in the middle, the thing that's near the middle bottom of the screen, we've done some of those conversions already. Convert dot two decimal, convert dot two double, convert dot 2int32, convert dot two char, convert dot two bool, convert dot two string. Hopefully between the examples that we have already done as a class and what you see on your screen, that makes some sense. All right. The two string that's up on the top, we've looked at already. We haven't looked at parse or try parse. So let's take a look at those in the examples that are here. All right. The decimal.parse right here, this is like using the convert.toDecimal. Okay. It's very similar to it. The try parse is different than the parse because what the try parse says is try to parse this thing right here, sales string. Try to parse it or convert it to a decimal. If it succeeds, put it in something called sales automatically for me. And if you go, I don't get that, you're going to see examples coming up. All right. So again, they've got some examples of doing conversions, and there's a little more on them out here if you want to read a little bit more. How to use methods to convert numbers to formatted strings. Some of this you've seen. I've used the C in toString, so I've had toString, parenthesis, double quote, C, double quote, parenthesis, to convert something to currency. Earlier in the semester, we did a P for percentage. We've also done the N for number. Those are the only three I typically ever use. You can use either a capital letter when you do this or a lowercase. It really doesn't matter. So they show you how you can do some formatting in here with some examples. All right, 3 other skills for working with data. Now, we're going to talk about all 3 of these right now, and one of them is going to look real different and real screwy. I will tell you to read this because there'll probably be 1 or 2 questions on your next written test, but you will not be tested on it. And if you go, I don't know what you're talking about, give me a second. We've got about 10 pages left in the chapter. All right. So it says there, the next 3 figures present 3 more useful skills. We'll learn how to work with scope. We'll learn how to work with enumerations. And we'll learn special ways that you can work with null values. That's the last one. That's the one that may seem a little tricky. All right. Scope is where something lives. And where something lives determines who can access it. What the heck are you talking about? Guess what? You know this. If I define variables and I define them outside of any method I've got in here, typically you put them right under this initialize component. You're going to learn what that is in chapter 12. But if I put them right here outside, so they're not in any inside of any curly braces. That means these are global. They have what's called class scope, and what that means is any part of the program that's here can use them directly, can change them directly. All right. These variables that you see here, these four variables, they come to life after the curly brace. They die after the ending curly brace. You cannot use these four variables in here or in here or any place else unless you do what's called pass them to other routines. And if you go, I don't know what that means, it's in a later chapter. So as it says there on the bottom of page 121, the scope of a variable determines what code has access to it. All right. If you declare something within a method, it has what's called method scope. If you declare it outside of a method, so it's not inside of any curly braces, it has what's called class scope. The lifetime of a variable is how long it's available to be used. A variable with method scope comes to life, like I said, when that curly is hit, the beginning curly brace. When the ending curly brace is hit, it dies. A variable with class scope is available as long as the program runs. Next are enumerations. So what the heck is an enumeration? An enumeration is a built-in data type. It's something that you create. I don't care about the examples they have here. I like this one. It says there an enumeration that sets constant values to 0, 1, and 2. This one right here. I'm creating a new type of variable. That new type of variable is called terms. The only values that terms can have are net 30 days, net 60 days, and net 90 days. If I don't give these things actual numeric values, this first one becomes 0, the second one becomes 1, the third one becomes 2. If I want to give these 30, 60, and 90 arithmetic values, I do them like this. You don't need that short that's in there. I don't know why they put that in there. You wouldn't need that. But in the first case, net 30 days is equal to 0. In the second case, net 30 days is equal to 30. All right. And then the way that you use them is, notice I'm creating another variable. Terms T equals terms dot net 30 days. So T will have a value of 0 if we use that one, and it'll have a value of 30 if we use that one. All right. This can be very nice. And typically when you use enumerations, it's when you're checking a lot of values. And if you can give those values names, your code can be much, much, much more human readable. All right. That's typically why you use that. All right. All right. The last thing that's in here then, all right. The next thing that's in here is this null coalescing operator. I think, in my humble opinion, that what we've covered so far, this is the hardest thing to understand. So I'm going to take a little bit more time to go over it with you. All right. Now, what you're saying here when you use the question mark, okay, what you're saying here is when you use the question mark, all right, in fact, I'm going to go back because my explanation won't be as good as theirs, I'm sure. All right. Once you declare a value type as nullable, all right, that means that basically it can contain null. So as it says here, it's called the null coalescing operator. It says it returns the value of the left operand if it's not null. Otherwise, it returns the value of the right operator. What the heck does that mean? All right, when you start using these, let's look at this one first. All right, this says if quantity has a value, so if it's not null, it can hold anything as long as it's not the word null. So if it's not the word null, you'll take whatever its value is and you'll assign it to QTY. If quantity is equal to null, you'll take -1. You'll take -1 and you'll assign it to QTY. All right. And like I said, it's a little bit confusing. When you put this here, this says that the value may be null. All right. This says that it's possible that you won't know the value of sales totals. So if you put that there, you can say, in later on in your code, you can say sales total equal null. If you don't put it in there, you're probably going to end up getting an error. So if that confuses you, we're going to do almost nothing with that the whole semester. All right. But I just wanted to bring it up for at least for some completeness. All right. The last thing that's in the chapter, we're down to the last 5 pages, is they go back and they rewrite the invoice total application again. So as it says, it's 2 more versions. The first one is the basic version. It's pretty much the one that we wrote. The only difference is, because I wrote this a lot earlier, so the only difference is here they're allowing you, basically you can put in a different number in here. We put ours to 10%. All right. But notice they're actually using a variable here for that discount percent. They're setting it equal to 25 by default. All right, so theirs is a little bit, I'm not going to say better than mine. It's a little more flexible, bendable, or whatever you want to call it. So let's look at this one. This is the enhanced invoice total application. So let's take a look at it. All right. Now, each time you calculate a new invoice, the number that's in there, all right, that number gets incremented by 1. The amount that's in that invoice, the total, gets added to your previous total. And if I had 3 of them, it's going to take this right here, divide it by 3, and it's going to get that number. And if you say, I don't understand, well, after the break, I'm going to go back and rewrite that payroll program that we did. We'll just do the one that's we'll do the one that's GUI, and we'll rewrite it so it looks like this. All right. So we'll do that. Okay. That's it for the chapter. Now, after the break, I want to do 2 things. So we'll probably be done by 11 o'clock, if not earlier. But I want to do 2 things after the break. The first thing I want to do is switch my store back here, my share, back to Visual Basic, all right, or Visual Studio, and I want to rewrite that program, like I said, and I want to rewrite it so that it's going to look more like this invoice total. That's the first thing. After we get done with that, all right, this Sunday now, Sunday the 4th, your chapters 1 through 3 written tests are due. Your chapters 1 through 3 homework is due. Your chapters 1 through 3 labs are due. Some of you may have already turned them in. That's fine. I will hopefully start grading that stuff since we're off Monday. All right, although my daughter is supposed to be coming from out of state, so depends on whether or not she's here, but I'm going to try to grade that stuff so it's available for you and out there with the grades when you come back on Tuesday. All right. But what will be due for Sunday, September 11th, so a week from Sunday, will be the written tests, which we will go over them, but I'm going to let you shout out answers. I'm not giving you any answers, but the written tests for chapter 4 and chapter 5, the homework for chapter 4 and chapter 5, and the labs for chapter 4 and chapter 5. Those will be due the 11th of September. And on the 6th of September, at least as of right now, that Tuesday, 1 week from today, you will take your hands-on test for chapters 4 and 5. All right, so we will look at that homework and labs for 4 and 5 after the break as well. It is now 9:55. Let's take a break. We will reconvene in 10 minutes at 10:05. All right. I'll be gone. I'm getting a new water and I'll be back after that. I'm going to start up trying to get something done for my wife, but that's fine. All right, so let me go in and change my share again so that my share is showing on Visual Studio. There it is. All right. We've already written this once. Now I'm going to try something and I don't know if it's going to work or not. I don't remember if I can do this, so let me check. There used to be a way that you could come in here because I'd like to take my project that I've done and just copy it. So I'd like to be able to take this, make a copy of it, put it right below where I am, but I don't see how to do it. So I'm just going to recreate that. It won't take much time. So let me add a new project. It will again be a Windows Forms app. This one will be, I'm going to call this Payroll GUI 02, and it's going to have stuff from chapter 4 on it today, and I'll add a few other things on it for chapter 5 for tomorrow. All right, so create. I'm going to do this fairly quickly if I can. So let me do what I always do first. Come in here, and we will first rename the form. So FRM. Oh, this is the payroll one. I want to start all over again. I'm sorry. Let me just start all over again. No. All right. I'm going to stop this and I'm going to do a file, close solution. I will save everything, but I'm going to do a new, right now I'm going to come in and do a new project. So new project. Let's see. It will be a Windows Forms app. I want to try calling it invoice total GUI 02. Boy, it'd be nice if I could find this thing, but I don't know where it is, but we'll look for it anyway. What do you know? There's invoice total. That should work. Hopefully it's going to work. So that'll be my folder. And the solution name, I'm just going to do it all over again. Hold on. I'm going to just create a brand new folder in here. So let me go back, and let me go in here. Yeah. I'm going to close that too. I'm going to create, what I want to do is I want to create this. You may not see it on your screen right now. You will in just a couple minutes, but I want to create the enhanced invoice total form before your very eyes, as they say. So let me go in here. And first, I'm going to make a copy of that page from the book. So in other words, what I want to do, all right, I'm going to show you this. What I want to do is I want to make this the enhanced invoice total form. All right. So this is what I want to do. I'm going to write it. I'm not going to use any of their code. I'm just going to write it myself, but it'll look like theirs. All right. Okay. So let's start then by changing our share, going back to Visual Studio. All right, so I'm back here again. That's fine. Now, before I do anything here, All right, I'm going to go back, and you won't see this, but I'm just going to create a folder on my desktop. All right, so I'm going to create a folder on my desktop right now that's called Enhanced, make it all lowercase, Enhanced Invoice Total. All right, so I'm making this Enhanced Invoice Total. All right, and that's on my desktop. Now, going back into Visual Studio, I'm going to come back in here and do a File, New Project. All right. I want it to be a Windows Forms app. Again, I will call it Enhanced Invoice Total GUI. And I'm going to have it here on my desktop. But what I want to choose now on my desktop is that folder called Enhanced Invoice Total. So that's what I'm going to choose. So there that is. And I'll just call the project, instead of Enhanced Invoice Total GUI, maybe we'll go back and write it as a console. So I'll just call that Enhanced Invoice Total. Oops. Create. All right, so what I want to do is I want to create that thing that you saw. So you won't see this, but it's got 5 on the left. It's going to have 5 text boxes. So I'm going to put those here. I'm going to move this down just a little bit there. So I'm going to start by creating 5 labels. Let's again change the background color of our form. And I'll make it that orangish. So there's our first label. I'm going to change that color to make it a shade darker. All right. I'm going to change the auto size on there so it's set to false. So there will be my first label. I'm making 5 of those. Let's leave that one off for now. All right. I need 3 buttons. So I now have those. What else did I have on the interface here? I will need 5 labels, 5 more, or 5 text boxes right here. So I'm going to have 5 of those. Looks about right. All right, then finally I want 3 more labels and 3 more text boxes over here. So there will be 1 label, 2 labels, 3 labels. I don't want to change that. I want the size to be pretty much standard. And we'll do our text boxes. I'm going to make this a little bit wider. So that was quick, but that's my interface. I'm going to highlight everything, go over to my font, change my font size to 20, bold and Arial. So that's done. Now I think I pretty much, I'm going to bring this up. You can't see it, but I'll be able to see it. So five, 3 buttons, 3. All right, it looks pretty much the same. These buttons are actually down here a little bit so they're like that. All right, so let's go and fill everything in that we've got to fill in here. Let's start with our buttons. They're the easiest because, as always, they are BTN calculate, and the name will be calculate. The next one, the name will be clear, and it'll be BTN clear. And the last one will be BTN exit. And the name on the button will be exit. All right, those are done. So let's do these three. And I just got to see their names. Number of invoice, here I'm going to write it down so I don't screw it up. They say number of invoices. Again, I'm taking this right from your book. So number of invoices, total of invoices, and then invoice average. Let me change those right now. Probably these labels are going to be a little bit too small. So what I'm going to do real quickly is I'm going to make this bigger. I'm going to move these out. I'm going to make these wider like that. I think that looks, hopefully it's going to look the way I want it to in just a moment. And I'm going to move these down. And I'm going to make these wider. All right. I'm kind of anal on this. So let's see, this size of this is 322.37. So I want these to also be 322.37. There. Now they're all the same. I can move this over just a little bit. There. All right. So now I've got that working. Again, I'm going to move this over kind of the way they showed it. It's probably a little wider than what's in the book, but it'll look just fine when we get it all done. All right, do my Control A, and I'm going to lock my interface into place. I've already got my buttons done, so let's work on the labels next here. So this first label is going to be called LBL number of invoices. All right, and it'll say on it just that, number of invoices. Right. The next one is total of invoices. So it will be LBL total of invoices. And the text on there will be total of invoices. And the last one is LBL invoice average. And the text on there will be invoice average. Try that again. I changed the wrong one. So this is LBL total of invoices. And the text on there is total of invoices. And this last one is LBL invoice average. And it will say invoice average. All right, those are all done. So let's change these three text boxes here. So this was LBL number of invoices. So I'll make this one TXT number of invoices. This second one was LBL total of invoices. So I will make this TXT total of invoices. And finally, the last one is LBL invoice average. LBL invoice average. So the name of that one will be TXT invoice average. All right, so all that's renamed. So I've got what's left to rename here. All right, are these 5. So let's look at these. And they will be enter subtotal, subtotal, discount percent, discount amount, and total. All right. And all of these will be read-only except for that one, and all of these will be read-only as well. So let's make them read-only right away. And these 4 will also be read-only. All right. So let's go and do our labels. This will be LBL enter subtotal. And the text on there will be just the same thing, enter subtotal. Right. The next one will be LBL subtotal. And it will say subtotal. The next one will be discount percent. And it will say discount percent. All right. The next one will be the discount amount. And it will say discount amount. And the, whoops, with a colon at the end. And the last one will be just total. Let's see. Now we'll do our text boxes. So we've got TXT enter subtotal. We have TXT subtotal. We have TXT discount percent. We have TXT discount amount. And we have TXT total. As I like to do, I'm going to move this over. And I'm going to click the down arrow to make sure I didn't miss anything. I can tell I missed the form. So we have to rename the form. So let's do that next. This over. All right, so I'm going to click on the form, right mouse click, and choose rename. And I'm going to call this FRM Enhanced Invoice Total. Hit enter. Yes, I do want to change this. I'm going to change the text on here to Enhanced Invoice Total. You can see there it is right there. Come in and make my normal changes. In other words, I'm going to set my accept button to BTN calculate. I'm going to set my cancel button to BTN clear. I'm going to set my start position to center screen. All right. And now this is going to be 0, but I'm going to go like this: 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 for the tab order. So again, 0 is there, 1, 2, 3. Those are the ones that matter. But 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So now, as far as I can tell, everything is set. So another view tab order. And let me do a file, save all, and run the program. Make sure it's in the right location. All right. The tab order works. So everything is working now. So as always, let's come in and we'll have to put in our calculate, and we'll have to put in our clear, and we'll have to put in our exit. So think about this. When I click clear, I want this to clear, and this, and this, and this, and this. I don't want these to clear. Those are my totals. All right. So I want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 clears and to set the focus. So txt enter subtotal dot text equals double quote, txt subtotal dot text equals double quote, txt discount percent equals double quote, and that's got to be dot text, I'm sorry. Txt discount amount dot text equals double quote, and finally txt total dot text equals double quote, and txt enter subtotal dot focus. That should be everything that I've got to do in here. All right, so I'm just going to do a file save all. I'm going to go back. You won't see this for a second, but again, I'm going to grab my code from my exit screen. All right, so let me do that. So I'm going to come in here and type in exit button so I can check that. There is that code. So there's that. So right now, 2 of my 3 buttons should be operational. So I can put something in here and I can click over here, for example, click clear. That does clear. I can put something in there, come down here and hit escape. That works. All right. Calculate doesn't do anything yet, but my exit, no. Exit, yes. Okay, so that works. So let's think about now what we want to do. When we click calculate, we want to take our subtotal that's right there, and we're just going to assume it's going to be a number. We'll fix that after we go through chapter 5, but we're going to just copy that from here to here. All right. I'm going to use a constant. We're just going to assume a discount rate of 25%. So every time we do this, we'll be able to figure all that stuff out. All right. Once we add a new total, we want to add 1 to this. We want to take that total and add it to this. Then we want to take whatever in that total, divide it by whatever is in there, and put it there. Hopefully I didn't say that too fast and it made at least some sense to you. All right, so I'm going to calculate and I'm going to say decimal subtotal equals txt enter subtotal dot text. No, that's not going to work because I have to convert it. And I'll do that right now. So I'm going to say convert dot to decimal, whatever we just put in there. All right, so we've got that. Okay, so that's going to be our subtotal. All right. We're also going to come up in at the top, we're just going to set a blanket. So set program constant, and I'm going to say that discount percent, I'm just going to set it. Const decimal discount percent equals 0.25 M. So that's 25%. That'll do that one. All right. So I can now say txt subtotal dot text equals the subtotal dot toString. That's going to be correct. txt discount percent dot text is going to be equal always to our constant. So discount percent dot toString, and I want that to be a percentage. We'll go over all this when we're done. Sorry. All right. And then next, txt discount amount dot text will be equal to subtotal. Whoops, try it again. Subtotal times the discount percent. All right. Yeah, that is correct. We'll do decimal here. That'll be currency. And finally, our total, that's the discount amount. So our total is going to be equal to our subtotal minus our discount amount. And I spelled discount wrong, so let me change that. All right, and txt total dot text is going to be equal to total dot toString. And again, that'll be, whoops, currency. Now, hopefully you see, you might think, well, I do this because I'm anal, but I like to be able to have everything lined up so I can see exactly what's going on. So let's see, I didn't put in a semicolon there, so there. So let's do this. I like to put my variables first, so I'm going to move these like that. All right, they're a little bit skewered now from where I had before, but that's okay. Now, if I did this correctly, and with me, I can always make mistakes, but if I did this correctly, I'm going to put in the numbers that they show in the book, and hopefully I have my left-hand side done. So I'm going to type in 225.5. All right, the subtotal isn't the same thing, so I'm going to have to look at that. All right, the discount percent should be 25.00. What is that subtotal? I got to look in the book and see what they're using for their subtotal. And I know that for just a second here, let's see. happened there, but something goofy did. I'm going to go back to the book. You won't see this, but I want to see how they figured out the subtotal in the book. So the subtotal, according to that, that's what it is. All right. So let's take a look at what we have so far. So File, Save All. And I'm going to run the program and put in here 225.5. This should now be 225.5. This should be 25.00%. This should be 225.5 times 25%. And this should be what's in there minus what's in there. All right. So I'm going to format that one in just a second to currency. So 1/4 of that looks about right. And 225 minus 50, that looks like it's right. So I still have these to go, which I'll do in just a second. So I'm going to clear. And let me take the TXT subtotal and I'm going to format that to currency. All right. So I've now gone through and I have done all of these. All right. But the first thing I want to do when I click the calculate button is that, well, I can do it after I do all this stuff. I want to add 1 to my number of invoices. All right, so I need a variable for that. So let's make an int here. We'll call it num invoices, and I'll set that equal to 0. In fact, just to be sure, I'm going to make that global. So I've got my program constant. I'm going to have some set global variables. I should say class variables, class level variables. All right, so that'll be that. Invoices will be 0. So that'll be that one. Then I need the invoice total. So I'm going to call that a decimal total invoice amount. I'll just call it total of all invoices. And I'll set that equal to 0M at the beginning of the program. All right. And then I'll have one more decimal that'll be called total invoice average. And I'll set that equal to 0. All right, 0M. So I now have all that stuff that I need. Okay. So when I do this, and I come in there with my calculate, okay, that's all been done, all of that. So I want to come through here now and say plus plus num invoices. Right, that'll add one of those. TXT number of invoices dot text is going to be equal to num invoices dot toString. There's no special formatting. So this will be again our total number of invoices. I'm going to want to take that total of all invoices. All right. And I want to say there plus equals my total. All right. Then I can say TXT total of invoices dot text equals that total of all invoices dot toString, and that will be currency. All right, so that is figuring out the total of all invoices amount. And then finally, I need my average. So I need my total average invoice amount. All right, and that will be, we call that here total invoice average. And that will be equal to our total of all invoices divided by our number of invoices. And finally, we'll want to say txt invoice average dot text equals total invoice average dot toString formatted to currency. Okay, I think I'm done. We'll go back over everything at the end, but let me put a couple of them in here, see if it works. So let's keep it simple. 100, 25%, $25 off, 75, 1, 75, and 75. All right, let's clear. Those don't clear. Let's try 500. That's now 2. All right, our original was $75. So 75 plus 375 is 450. And 450 divided by 2 is 225. So it appears as though this works. So let's go back and look at the entire program. Okay. All right. I don't think I have to go over the clear button anymore. I think you hopefully all understand that well enough. I don't think I have to go over the exit button anymore. So let's just look at this one. Now, I made these global, all right, so they would retain their value over calls. In other words, as I keep running this again and again and again after clearing, it's going to retain the total. So if I put in 3 invoices, I want the number of invoices to be 3. If the first invoice was 100, the second was 200, and the third was 300, I want that total of all invoices to be 600, and I want my total invoice average to be 600 divided by 3, or 200. All right, so that's what those variables are. These are the ones that I'm having on the left. So I need the subtotal, the discount amount, and the total. Now, the only thing that I really should change in here is this thing with my discount percent. I want that to always be 25. All right, I don't want that to, so when I clear it, I don't want that to clear because that discount percent is always 25%. All right, and to be sure, for that discount percent, I'm not going to set it here. If you remember, because I did this before, I'm going to set it in my forms load event. So if I save this and run it, it should look exactly the same as before. But if I put 100 in here, for example, and click calculate, now when I click clear, that 25 does not go away. That's what I wanted to have happen. So saying this again then, this is the subtotal that I'm going to input. All right, so that's what's in that enter subtotal. I immediately put that into my regular subtotal. Okay. The discount amount is going to be whatever I entered times 25%. So if that was 100, it'll be 100 times 25%. So the amount will be 25, $25. The total will be that subtotal, like 100 minus the discount amount, so minus $25, so that would be 75. Then right here, I'm just coming in and I'm filling up those values. All right. So put values into associated text boxes. Not the greatest comment. All right. Then I work with my total number of invoices. I just had one, so I add 1 to it. All right. And that goes right in here. Then Notice, remember that shortcut. This is the same thing right there in blue in line 44 as saying total of all invoices equals total of all invoices plus total. So it's a shortcut. All right. And then we fill that up. And finally, we divide the total number of invoices by the number of invoices. So that total by the number to get our average. And we fill that in. So I think, like I said, could I have made a mistake? Of course I could have made a mistake, but I don't think I did. So I'm going to do a couple things and then I'm going to just call it a period here. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to change my share and I'm going to change it to the internet. There's a reason for it. You'll see the reason in a moment. But I'm going to go out to the internet here. So that I can find it. There it is. Nope, that is not it. That's where I want to go, but not yet. There's the internet. All right. I want to go out and I want to go out to github.com and make this available to anybody who might want to use it. So I'm going to create a new repository. It'll be me with the owner, and I'm going to call this enhanced invoice total because that's what my folder is called. It'll be public. It'll be public now. Enhanced, spell it right, enhanced invoice total. All right. Should say that that name is available, and it is. So I'm going to click Create Repository. Now I'm going to grab that line for my remote, add origin. I'm going to copy that to the clipboard. Now I'm going to change my share. And I'm going to go into my share here. I'm going to go into GitHub. And I don't think I have one set up for this yet. So let me clear. And I'm going to do a CD ... and a CD to enhanced invoice total. Enhanced. CD enhanced invoice total. Well, it's not letting me change, so I'm going to have to create a new one of those. So give me a second here. I want you to be able to see everything that I'm doing, including all my many screw ups. All right, so I'm going to come back to here. I'm going to go to here and I'm going to change to enhanced. Oh, that's the thing. I called it enhanced instead of enhanced. So the original one was called enhance. Let's see if I can change the name of that right now to enhanced. Of course, it won't let me because it's open right now. So I'll go on it. Oh, my goodness. That's okay. All right, I'm going to right mouse click on this. And I'm going to choose Git Bash here. All right. Then I'm going to come in and do my git init. And that should have put that Git folder there. It did. And I'm going to do my git add dot. And that should have added everything. I can check by typing in git status. And there's a bunch of junk in there. So now I'm going to say git commit -m enhanced invoice total program. All right. Now, because I forgot to copy it, I've since written over that. I'm going to copy this line again from GitHub. Don't worry, we'll go right back. All right, I'm going to paste that in. And that's the repository right there. That's good. I can double check with a git remote -v, and that is correct. Now I'm going to have a problem. I'm going to have a problem here. So let me play here with my share. In fact, I'm going to come in first. I'm going to totally close Visual Studio out. I'm closing that. Now I'm going to go back to my share here. And in my share, I'm going to go back to this. Now this is right now called enhance invoice total. I want it to be enhanced. So I'm going to put a D there to make it enhanced. Of course, I did it wrong. Enhanced invoice total. And it says you cannot do that because it's open in another program. Don't know where it's open. All right, so it's still open. See if I can figure out where it's open. Well, I'm going to just do this. This what I'm doing is ridiculous. I'm going to keep it as enhance invoice total. All right, now we're going to all learn something, including me. And that is, can you rename a GitHub repo? Now, you should be able to, so I'm going to see if I can do that. So I'm going to go over to here. I'm going to go back to GitHub. Find my repo. All right, I am still there at enhance invoice total. That's good. So now I want to go back again and change my share. And I want to change it to the internet. Sorry about this. If I just knew how to darn type, I'd be a lot better off. All right. I'm going to Google in here how to rename a GitHub repo or repository. All right. Navigate to the main page of the repo. Under the repository name, click Settings. Under the name heading, put the new one in there you want. So let's see if we can do this. All right. So there we are. I'm there. I'm going to go and click looking for settings. Settings. All right, repository name. I'm going to change that and remove the D. So it says enhance invoice total and click rename. So I learned too, that's how you rename something. All right. Now I'm going to have to change because I think before I was sending it to enhanced and not enhance. That was dumb on my part. So let me grab this, copy that. You're not going to see this for a minute, but you'll see it in just a second. I have to come in and under my GitHub, I have to reset because right now, if I clear this, if I said git remote -v, notice it's going to enhanced. I just renamed that enhance. All right. So how do I do that? Well, this is the command. If I keyed it all in there, git remote set the origin. So I'm resetting my origin so it says enhance and not enhanced. So I'm renaming where I'm sending it to. I can type in remote -v and it should now say enhance, and it does. All right, so I have gone through here and I did my commit. All right, so all that stuff's been done. So let me clear this And let me do my git push minus u origin master. Hit enter. That's always good. Good. Now I'm going to, just so you see this, I'm going to again change my share back to the internet, and it may have been there to begin with. I don't know, but it'll be on the internet in just a second. And now when I go here and I refresh, there it is. Enhanced invoice total. It says 6 minutes ago. All right, but there it is. If I go down here and look in here, keep going down, sooner or later I would find this form file. And there is everything I just did. Right there. So you now have this. Actually, that doesn't look right. That isn't good. It's got the old one in there for some reason. We'll look. I'll double check this afterwards, and believe me, I'll make it work. One last thing, and then we're done. So we will be done by 11. Let me change my share one last time. Just I want you to see very quickly what we're going to do tomorrow. Okay, start up Visual Studio here. And I'm going to bring up that payroll thing that I had up there before and bring that up. Let's see. All right. Tomorrow when we start, I'm just going to go over chapter 5 right away. All right. Then I'm going to go back and I'm going to do the program, whatever they have in chapter 5, but I'm also going to do this one, and I'm going to put totals over here. When we go into chapter 5 tomorrow, we will learn about control structures. What that means is you will learn how to do looping, and you will learn how to write if statements and switch statements. All right. That's all I have. Hopefully somebody is still on and watching. But if anybody has any questions, this is your time to ask. I'm sorry with all the switching between shares, and it's a pain in the butt for me as well as for you. But if there are no questions, I'm going to call it a period. All right, so not hearing any questions, I will see you tomorrow.